Hello. Welcome back to Five and Drive. It has been a minute since I've been on. Well, I'm excited to get back up and running again. I will make a confession. I made one video and have not posted it for my wife's sake. I made a video on sin and compared sin to a dirty diaper, and my wife listened to it and did not fully appreciate it. She said that is a perfect analogy, but I prefer that you didn't post it, so I didn't post it. They say happy wife, happy life. That is not the way that I live my relationship with my wife, but I do believe that when my wife tells me that something is not a good idea, I should probably take that into consideration. And I did, and it's probably a wise thing that I did. My little fishy here lost its eyeballs. That doesn't mean that it's not useful, because I've still caught fish off of it, but I do like my fishies having eyeballs when I'm fishing. I have hope that I have a little twirly white-tailed guy. I don't know what they're called. I don't know what any of my baits are called. But obviously I do not. My pastor, his son has been using those little twirly. They kind of look like this, but they're like white. They got like a white twirly tail on them. But they kind of look like that. And he's been having good luck with them apparently. So I was hoping that I had one. Apparently I don't. So I'll just be using my little blue chat again. But this one's got eyeballs. It does. Okay, so I don't know if this will hold up against the wind. I might be playing a dangerous game here. Tripod, phone, wind, lake. That may be a recipe for disaster, but I don't know. We'll find out. So I was talking with a buddy about Adam. It was an interesting conversation that I was having. We were talking about Adam, and it is my belief, and I think it's a lot of Christians' beliefs, that if Adam had not sinned, that today Adam would still be alive. And he kind of challenged that belief. Almost lost it. He kind of challenged that belief. And his challenge was based off of the idea of the tree of life. And also off of the fact that the Bible doesn't call Adam perfect, but God says that when Adam was made, he saw Adam and said that Adam was good, that the creation of man was good. So my thing, firstly, we're talking about God. So God, who is perfect, creates something that's imperfect. So since we're talking about God who is perfect, God can't create anything that's imperfect. So my response was that, well, the reason that Adam died was because of sin, because sin brought death. And his response was, well, what about the tree of life? Like, Adam was going to die anyway, because otherwise what was the purpose of the tree of life? Well, here's the thing, is that the tree of life, the Bible doesn't expound on what the tree of life was, or what the purpose of the tree of life was. And here's my thing: if the tree of life was something that was that important, now obviously it was important to the point where after Adam and Eve sinned, the Lord put a barrier around their tree of life so that they couldn't eat from the tree of life, so that they wouldn't live forever in their sin. But obviously, I was listening to a podcast, and there's an idea out there that possibly the tree of life may have been something that they ate to rejuvenate them, to keep themselves living forever. I don't know that I would agree with that, simply from the fact that if that were the case, I feel like God would have put in the commands that they were to eat of the tree of life, because that would have been something that he would have commanded them to do in order for them to stay alive. And so I couldn't say that that's the purpose of the tree of life, but God never states what the purpose of the tree of life was. He states what the purpose of the tree of good and evil, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil was, and he states that if you eat of it, that you will die. And that was his only command. He said, don't eat of this tree or you're gonna die. And I think that some Christians would argue, well, he was just talking about a spiritual death. Yes and no. You move into, so let's jump out of Genesis and you move into Romans, right? And in Romans, obviously, it talks about the wages of sin, and the wages of sin is death. When Christ came, Christ was born of the Virgin Mary. He took on flesh. He came to earth, took on flesh, was born of the Virgin Mary. He died on the cross, a physical death. It wasn't a spiritual death, it was a physical death. He was laid in the tomb for 3 days, rose again, and now is seated at the right hand of the Father. This was a physical death. The wages of sin is death. This isn't a spiritual thing. This is a physical death. Now, yes, there is a spiritual aspect involved in that, where, when Adam sinned, then guess what happened? Now he was no longer walking with God. Remember, in the garden, God was walking with Adam in the garden. It states that when Adam sins and he hears the footsteps of God. So clearly God at some point was walking with Adam in the garden, because he recognizes God's footsteps. So obviously after he sins, he's not walking with Adam in the garden anymore, and Adam gets kicked out of the garden. But the wages of sin was death. You move on to Romans 5, I believe it is, and it talks about how because of one man sin was brought into the because of one man sin was brought into the world, and because of sin death was introduced, and death was spread throughout all mankind. It's in Romans 5. It's something like that. I'll have to find it, but essentially it talks about how because of sin, corruption happens and death happens, and without that sin, there wouldn't be death, there wouldn't be corruption, and therefore, if Adam hadn't ever sinned, he wouldn't have ever died. Now, what was God's plan? God is perfect. God is all-knowing. God knew what was going to happen. God made a perfect plan as to what was going to happen. And so, you could argue the fact of, how could a perfect God create beings and then let them do something evil? But that's the thing, Adam was a perfect being, but if he didn't have the ability to choose, the free will, then he would have just been a robot, and that wouldn't have glorified God. It would have just been another creation that he made that, it would have been glorifying God. And I'm not saying that God can't glorify himself in making a tree or making a rock, but God's ultimate plan with us was to glorify himself. And to take away our free will wouldn't have glorified him. So he gave us that free will, and he gave us one rule. And even if it hadn't been Adam that broke that rule, maybe generations down the line, somebody else broke that rule. Well, still, the same exact consequence would have happened. And Christ would still have had to come. Christ would still have had to die, because the wages of sin is death. And I think that Adam would not have died if he had not sinned. If he and Eve had not sinned, they would still be walking this earth. And it's hard to wrap your brain around because of the fact, the earth is only so big. If nobody ever died, there'd be trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions. You couldn't even count the amount of people that would be on this earth. But if that had been God's plan, he would have made up for that. He would have made up for that. But God knew what was going to happen. God created mankind, and he knew what we were going to choose. And he made a plan for that. And, the whole idea of, God didn't say that Adam was perfect. Well, when you look at the word good, you look at the word that God uses. He says he created the heavens and the earth, and then he looked at it and said, it is good. God's perfect. He didn't look at it and say, that's all right. It's good. We'll call that good enough for now. Whatever. We'll move on. How about we make some birds? Yeah. Good enough job. Whatever. That looks good. Yeah. No, we're looking at a word that's far more than just it's good. We're looking at a word that means more of it's what I wanted. Let's say that I am building something, and I have a plan in mind. Remember, when God is creating the earth, he had a plan in mind. So let's say that I'm building something. I have a plan in mind. I'm building a house. I have a plan in mind. I have my blueprint in here in my mind, but nobody else can see it. We look forward into Revelations, and it talks about how the angels are looking on in awe as God is putting this plan together, and they're looking on in awe, questioning, what are you doing? There's almost this idea. They're not really questioning, but there's almost this idea of they're questioning, what is God doing? They don't even know. But so let's say that I have this blueprint in my mind, and I'm building something, and my wife comes over and she goes, hey, you forgot this. And I say, no, don't touch it. This is good, because I have a blueprint in my mind. This is good. This is excellent. This is what I want. This is what my plan is. This is good. It's not perfect yet, because I am not done yet. I'm not done yet. It's not perfect yet. My plan has not been completed, and therefore it is not yet perfect. But it is good, because I have a plan, and this is all going according to my plan. And I know what my creation is going to choose. I know what's going to happen. This is all going according to my plan. And then it happens. And he sets his plan in motion. And that's what God is doing. When he says this is good, he's saying this is my plan. This is all working out according to what I have planned to glorify myself. This is good.